again for another L-5 podcast. Tonight we did one movie we watched the entire thing of, kind of our normal thing. And tonight's feature was I Killed Giants.
Gift of new, gift of old. Bless the righteousness, guide my hand. Against the darkness, my final stand.
Barbara, I want to get to know you a little bit more. Do you have many friends? What about your sister?
I play your dragons or whatever if you ask me to.
That would be hilarious.
What are you doing? What's it for?
There's some serious stuff going down. I find giants. I hunt giants. I kill giants.
I do remember watching the trailer and it looked kind of interesting. It was like fantasy, whimsical, sci-fi kind of drama that kind of interests me. And I was like, okay, let's go and check this out. I hadn't heard of the director before, and I don't know that I'd seen the lead actress before. I can't remember if I've seen her before, the little girl. In the first 17 minutes, I wrote this. It's interesting enough. The family without parents dynamic. Lead actress is acting really well. She's holding on to old memories. Very imaginative. Smart girl who builds stuff and saw a giant once or twice, but needs to see it again for some reason that we don't know. I love gnocchi, and this giant has good taste if the giant eats gnocchi. That's what I was thinking. Did you know? So this is funny. So there's a scene with the giant, and he touches the blood or whatever it is, the potion that she put on the side of the tree, and then you see a really close glimpse of an owl, and just a close up of the owl's face, and it made me think. Did you know that an owl can't move its eyes individually? It has to move its entire head to see left or right. The only reason why I say that is because we have a, what do you call those things? Alexa device. And the question of the day the other day was, what animal can't move its eyes individually? And the answer was owl. And I was like, I didn't know that. That's kind of interesting.
And there's a fun fact.
And so when I saw the owl, it's the first thing that popped in my head. So I wrote that and I said, thanks, Alexa. And then I said, right now I'm at a 2-star right now at this movie. I don't really know what to think about it. I'm not really glad that I saw it, but there is some slight interest there.
Was 17 prior to like Zoe Saldana's character being, or was?
I think so. I want to say so, yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I couldn't remember when she was introduced, but I was going to add something about her. But anyway, 17 minutes. Like Corey, kind of weird, but it had a good vibe that I was like, okay, it's telling me more, but there's this weird kind of quirkiness to the film that I kind of like. The balance, I put balance between fear and fantasy because obviously she's fearing something both in her mind and kind of how she conceptualizes things. There's this fantasy because it reminds me of playing a Final Fantasy game. And one of my favorite games is these characters, RPGs, who face these giants, sometimes normal humans, but they're pretty much facing these big titans. And so it reminded me of that with the good storyline. And so I put fear and fantasy instead of Final Fantasy. I put the budget is kind of low in this 17. I'm like, I don't know how much budget they have, but I'm not seeing a lot of production and a lot of like money being spent. But I said the CGI is pretty good. And so I said, if they are spending a lot of money on this film, I think personally that CGI and all the kind of animation and all that stuff is where the money kind of hits the road. And so I put the budget, the production, CGI, And I then lastly I put the film is okay, but I still am wanting more. I want more character development. I want more score. I want more visuals. I want more of this fear that she is giving the viewer, and I want that without having to read this graphic novel, or because I know this is based off of that, but I haven't read it, so I'm waiting to you film to give me that without being able to read it, because everyone's not going to read that before they watch a film sometimes. So I gave that a 2 as well. So I echo Corey.
All right. So I said that I thought this was loaded with character building actions. And it was really intriguing to me. I wish the dialogue was better or had better delivery at this point, 17 minutes in. But all the repetition and the rituals are quite elaborate and unique. I love the little totems that the character is making. And at 17, I'm holding on to our standard 3 score, just sort of being in the middle, trying to allow it to unfold more. And I stopped just as she was finishing counting the totems in the school, and I think they did introduce Zoe actually in that scene because she was following her into the bathroom. So, but you didn't know what kind of teacher she was or anything.
Yeah, we didn't know what role she was. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
that pause.
that kind of sigh, so this is going to be, I think we should do this as a non-spoiler review up until a point when we decide that we can go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving forward too.
Yeah. So without spoiling anything, it's clear that the character Barbara she kills giants, right? She kills giants. She's laying traps, she's doing totems, she's protecting the town, she's got all of this stuff going on. And I'm there for that. I'm there for this movie where she's a giant slayer, and that's kind of cool. But as it develops, in order to really nail that, I think that the actress just wasn't quite just ready for that part. Ultimately, there's so many places where it just sort of falls, and it's a kid saying the lines and not, and it just pulls you out. So, it's not Shakespeare, so cut it some slack, I guess. But yeah, and it's not. It's not a film for adults, but it's not a film for little kids either.
Right.
So it really needed to have more weight. I think it really deserved, I think, to have a little bit more weight. So I think I'm ultimately a little bit more disappointed than the 3. I think I'm moving my overall rating down a little bit, probably 2, just because the visuals, I did think the visuals were great. I don't have any faults with the design of the characters that they did in CGI and or how any of that was integrated. I thought that all of that was just beautiful. I just wish that the actors carried it a little bit more.
What was your first 17, Brian? Your first 17 score?
Oh, 3. I was like, okay, this could be a 3. Yeah, because I was kind of along for this. She'd already had some lines in it that I was just like, let's just see,
Yeah.
But it was like all of the characters kind of had that, so it's kind of like it's not maybe it's the script's fault. I don't know. So
yeah, there were some times where I felt like, I know this is going to sound weird, but Barbara's character, felt like she was saying lines from someone who was a little bit older or someone who was a little bit stronger, like you said. And it just kind of fell flat coming out of her mouth. Like you said, it just felt like she was repeating some stuff that somebody told her to say. And the person who she was saying against wasn't a strong character either to kind of balance that off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know what else? Remember seeing the character on the screen before she had any lines,
Yeah,
and thinking to myself that this actress looks older
yeah,
than she probably is supposed to be. And I was,
right,
trying to figure out, how old is she supposed to be?
right.
And then when she
Mhm.
talked, I'm like, oh no, that's a little kid.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
And so it's like that. So I was already pulled out before she even said anything.
Mm,
So
mm,
so there's something weird about this, and I don't know that it's weird about the casting or just weird about the situation, but it was something a little off, and that just pulled me out a little bit, but not enough to just stay engaged with the movie. Like I wouldn't didn't get up and walk out.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But do you think possibly because of the things that unfold later, that is the reason why she's acting the way that she's acting? Like she's older, she's more mature than what her age really is supposed to be, or what she's really being. Like,
Or is she
or is,
really?
or yeah, or is
You
she?
know?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, because of the stuff that happens later, you find out, she is being tasked a little bit heavier than a
Yeah,
normal kid.
yeah,
So
Mhm.
yeah.
yeah, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean she's, you know,
Her,
it doesn't mean that she's got it yet.
her emotional outbreaks, man. I was like, she's screaming and yelling. I'm like, I ain't feeling this. Like,
Yeah,
I need to back to again what you two are saying, but like that's it. Like, I mean, I don't know. I just it was something where I've seen other young actors do it better, and I guess I hate to compare, people to others, but it's just it didn't feel authentic as we've seen, throughout the years. We've seen younger actors do such a phenomenal job. Some have hit flat. I'm not gonna, say the gamut, but I don't know. It didn't captivate me. It kind of made me bored because maybe I was expecting something
hmm,
Yeah.
and I wasn't getting it, and therefore that took the emotional and attachment for me away because I didn't feel that. And I think Corey was alluding to this. I didn't see it at the beginning, so later on I was like, maybe I'll get it, but I don't know if I was willing to be patient and wait around for that.
hmm.
And so the payoff, so like those outbursts and the elements of the adventurous sort of things that happen, like the engage when she engages with, each entity, or has a couple little mini battle type of
Hmm.
things,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
they're over so fast.
Yes.
True.
They're not extended, so which kind of is weird for a movie, but I guess isn't weird for, a kid, maybe. It's like things are really simple. Like I'm going to do this and then do this, and then done. I win. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. True.
or even when you compare it to like a D&D game or something, you roll the die to see if you win. It's like, yep, I won.
Yeah.
So it's like really short.
But maybe that's because she's been battling these giants for a long time. And it's gotten a lot easier. Because there were times she does something on her adventures that allow us to understand what's happening.
Yeah.
And they're like little hash marks. And I was like, okay, maybe that's because she's done this so many times. It's
true.
gotten a lot easier. It's like playing a game, after you do it so many times, it's easier for you to win. So
Right.
maybe that's what it is. But as the audience, we need to see that build happen. We need to see that
Mhm.
arc happen, right? Where she
Mhm.
loses and it takes longer, and then also where she wins and it's a whole lot quicker.
Yeah.
That helps us, believe in the character and believe in actually what's happening. So you're right. There are all those mini battles or the things she was happen really, really quickly. But I guess that's because that's not the focus. But if you were to look at the trailer and read the synopsis of what this movie is, you think that that's going to be more at the forefront.
Right.
It's not.
Right. The preview versus the reality of the film. Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
I could see where somebody could see this preview and be disappointed in the film that they actually got. Because because I didn't really remember it that much when I was watching it. But it was one of those things like Brian, where you said you didn't get up and walk away from the film. There is that intrigue as you're watching the movie going, what is really the story? What are we going to unfold? What are we trying to discover? And so I kept trying to guess at it as I was going along. And I went one way and the film kind of went another way. I thought I was on track and I was close, but I didn't quite get the gist of what was happening until much, much later.
Yeah, and so the description of the movie, at least on IMDb, is Barbara struggles through life by escaping into a fantasy life of magic and monsters, period. It's it. That's it.
Wow.
And the trailer, I think the trailer really, like you were saying, sells a monster movie.
It does.
This fantasy monster movie.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that, some aspects of this reminded me a lot of Where the Wild Things Are.
Sure.
And I thought that would pair really well with this, while watching the first half of this. And it's like real big problems, larger than life problems that kids have and how they deal with it and how they see this. And I think that Where the Wild Things Are was a little bit more successful than this. I think that this had a lot of ambition. So like both of these movies based on short stories, the graphic novel you mentioned, Jeremy, I think I'd like to read that just to see if on the surface the graphic novel doesn't go any deeper than the movie did.
Right.
So I think at this point we can probably say, why don't we just say what I think our recommendations are before spoiling it? Because ultimately, I think for me, it's about a 2.5. It's not a big. It's interesting, and I think that if a kid like I've got a daughter who's almost 17. I don't think she came down and watched a couple minutes of it, but during an exciting part of it, walked right back out. So I'm not. So that's why I'm not sure where the audience for this is. But I think that as we talk about this in the rest of the review, there might be an audience for this. If there's a kid who really kind of needs something to help them understand some coping mechanisms with the stuff that's going down in their lives.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So.
I'd say my overall rating didn't go up that much more than a 2. It was like a 2.5. Like you said, it was enough to keep me engaged, but not enough to warrant that I was glad that I saw it, for any particular reason. And then not one per se that I would just tell anybody, hey, you should watch this movie. I recommend it or anything like that. So I would say, it was probably right at around 2.5. Yeah, it's a good assessment.
Yeah, I'll stick with my 2. Peace up, A-Town down. I felt like that throughout the movie and just watching kind of how it unfolded, it didn't change any of the 5 little bullet points I put for my 17 minutes. And I thought this was one of those films where it would grow and change that. There's some films, not many, but there's some where I might go 2.5, and I'll go up to a 4. Not rare. It's rare, but it does happen. So, but this was not one of those. But I was giving it an opportunity to do that, and obviously we're all kind of at the same playing field, which is 2.5. So, again, what's our rating again for 2? What's our definition? I want the audience to hear. What's our number 2 again?
It could be worse.
Could be worse.
Yeah.
Could be worse.
And 1 is worse.
There you go.
No,
it could have been worse.
Once, and this is not a 1.
Right.
No. So I guess at this point, if you haven't seen the film, turn off Zoom and come back. I don't know, about 30 minutes or so, let's say. But we are getting ready to throw in some spoilers here for the film, starting now. The whole thing is all about her mom getting sick. And I know this is gonna sound crazy, It's going to sound crazy, but I'm going to say it right now. I've seen other films do a better job of talking about that issue of a parent, of a loss of a parent, or a parent getting sick and the child having to deal with that. A lot more emotional, a lot more, understanding of how you go through something like that. And there was a moment where Barbara wakes up in her bed for the first time, and her friend is there, and her friend is staring at her sick mom that's supposed to be, I guess, the giant or the monster or something like that, right? And so she's staring at her, and she has this look on her face like it's the worst thing that she's ever seen, the most horrific thing that she's ever seen. She drops the glass, and then she runs out crying. And so when we finally see her mom, we reveal her mom, that her mom is sick and in the bed. Honestly, I was expecting to see the worst. I was expecting to see a whole bunch of tubes, blood, whatever, something horrific. And when I saw it, it didn't really do anything for me to make me really believe that her mom was really that sick. I mean, it's not like the parent or whoever it is that we see has to be deathly ill and look really deathly ill in order for us to get it. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, I guess it's maybe all in the child's mind, right? Of how the child sees the person who is sick. If like, I'll give you an example. My father, back in the early 80s, he had his back go out. He was getting groceries out of the back seat of the car. I'll never forget this till the day I die. I was probably, 10 years old. He was getting groceries out of the back seat of the car, and his back went out, and he couldn't stand up. And he was screaming and hollering for my mom to come get him. And my mom helped him up the stairs and got him inside the house, and I didn't know what was going on. And he's laying on the sofa, excruciating pain. And I saw him like that, and I bawled. I was a baby all over again, and it was the most horrific thing that I'd ever seen. And my dad was like, "Tell that boy to come over here. What's wrong with him?" I come over there, and he's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "My daddy's gonna die," because I saw him in so much pain.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been in the same situation as this. The little girl sees her mom dying, like really knows that her mom is dying, or at least is sick. Maybe she doesn't know that she's dying. And it's the most horrific thing that she's ever seen, and she doesn't know how to cope with it. So she comes up with these stories, and she starts doing all these things. And maybe because her friend came over there, and her friend had never seen anyone sick like that in the bed before, and had never seen somebody hooked up to all those tubes and stuff. Maybe they thought it was the worst thing they'd ever seen, and that's why she freaked out like that or had that look on her face. That's all I can think.
But you know what? Honestly, I didn't get that she dropped the glass because she saw the mother. I thought she was startled when Barbara
saw that he was there.
Yeah, like she didn't expect Barbara to startle her. I think she just got startled. I don't know, because it's almost like she was bringing water to the mother.
Yeah, but she was staring at the mom, and she was shaking, and it looked like maybe she was already crying before she even saw Barbara. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting, but I think your story is spot on, because my qualms with the whole premise here is that you've got a little girl who's going to lose her mother. Mm-hmm. Apparently, she's already lost her dad.
Yeah.
He's not in the picture, and they don't go into that. But you, as a kid, you got closer. It bothered you. He said, "Come here," and you went. You didn't run away from him. Mm-hmm. So it's like a kid is a kid, and this is where, I'm not a psychologist, but is a kid going to be repelled from that parent that they're going to lose?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
unless there's a whole lot of psychological trauma in there, and they're building all this fantasy world and everything. And that's where I'm like, I wish I knew more psychology so I could understand some of these things a little bit better. So I could give the movie a little bit more slack, but it just didn't feel genuine.
Maybe that's where the audience comes into it. Maybe it's you know, you send it to, you show it to someone who is a psychologist who's dealt with these kind of things to kind of see if it is, you know, kind of realistic. But you're right. Every kid is going to react differently, you know, whenever they see something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely some abnormal psychology in that.
Yeah.
Like just seeing, obviously, I think you said it earlier too, Brian, around like just seeing things and being able to live in this like realm of actual things you see, but no one else is able to perceive. Like that's definitely all the way abnormal. But I wonder, you know, like I wonder the mental health and the kind of piece of like people who might hear voices and see certain things like this, how they would relate to that, especially like Corey was saying with the loved one, and they might have lost someone and that manifests itself into something else, whether it be a giant, whatever it is. Like I would love to look at that. That is not my area of research, but I know people who do research that stuff, and it is fascinating because I think that never comes out of you. That you can grow up, you can grow old, you can, you know, but that doesn't really change. How you cope with it does, but that's
the other movies, Fisher King, 12 Monkeys, all of those. I think those just do it in such a way more successful way. But of course, those movies are also not, you know, kid movies.
Yeah.
So it's really, you know, or kid-centric movies.
Right.
So that's
who is the audience for this movie? Yeah, you're right. I mean,
yeah.
Is it adults or is it children? It's definitely, I don't think children at all, but you could show it to someone who is dealing with that kind of thing and maybe see if it, you know, does anything. I don't know.
Okay. I got a pet peeve. Sorry. Jeremy, do you have something that's more on topic?
Yeah, I was just
about to
gonna
go
say
off topic.
the little the little objects that are around the school when she was 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that is a real thing. Now I was like, how many numbers is she going up to? Like, I hope this thing will go up to 100 because we got it after like 10. Like I was just saying, it was so funny that I know people who use those things as ticks, but when you mentioned that, Brian, earlier around like that, I was like, is that going to continue throughout the film? And obviously we saw different things, but that could have really been a powerful little trope you could have used to.
Yeah.
But that, again, that's the film gave us what it gave us. So.
Yeah. So I thought those totems that her character made and the drawing, the markings, her handwriting, the things that she was painting on the side of the trains, and the milk jugs of whatever they were, and the potions made from gummy bear juice and the recipes and all that stuff. I thought all of that was really spot on.
Yeah.
Totally taken out of it when they show us her drawings of the giants. Those were not done by the same person.
Yeah.
The artist renderings of these drawings, those weren't, you know, 14-year-old girl drawings compared to the handwriting.
That's a good point.
And the other things that she was marking, it's like not the same hand.
Yeah, I agree.
Not that a 14-year-old girl can't be a talented illustrator. That's not what I meant.
Yeah.
All of that, it just wasn't consistent with the character.
That's a good point.
So that can, you know, it's just, you know, production design kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah. One other thing I was going to talk about was, Jeremy, you said something about this being based off of a graphic novel. I did notice how when we did see the giants, when she was telling the story about the giants, it looked like it was pulled out of a graphic novel. And I thought that was pretty cool. The way that they illustrated that to show the history of the giants and the different types of the giants, it looked like it pulled straight out of the graphic novel. I thought that was cool. I like that. And then there were times where I was thinking, this is not real. Like she's making this all up. There's no such thing as giants. She's never seen a giant. And I kept trying to figure out what the giant was. Was the giant her father? This is gonna sound horrible, but was the giant her father who maybe did something to her?
Well, there were no clues.
There were no
clues. I was totally surprised that she had a sick mother in the upstairs.
Mhm.
Totally surprised by that.
I didn't know what was upstairs.
Right.
And so, because for like you said, I mean, I thought both of her parents were gone. I thought there weren't her parents at all.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
when Zoe Saldana was like, "Your mom," blah blah blah, I was like, "Her mom's alive." I'm like, okay, well, that's what's upstairs.
Yeah.
But you didn't reveal that until much later, and I had no clue what was going on there. Yeah.
Oh, I had one other thing about the production thing. There's one other thing that happens. Like, were you guys surprised when she set the trap and the big giant thing swung down and hit the tree? Like that she actually had a big gigantic sort of trap thing created? I was.
I didn't really think about that.
You know, she just had ropes strung around and, you know, totems and food bait kind of weird things like that. But then when that thing swung around and smashed against the tree, I was like, oh.
That thing, it packed some weight.
It did.
I knew she had something up her sleeve, but I'm agreeing. I kind of see your point, bro. I was like, oh, like we doing this?
Yeah.
That's bringing that reality a little into the danger level. And then the part where when she had the battle with the one giant and the terrain was on fire at the end of it, and so now she's an arsonist.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
it made me think of like, are we going Home Alone traps here? Like, are we using? Like how crazy are we?
Yeah, I did like though that I think they did have a kind of a reveal there, another reveal there about the reality blending in, because the giant kicked the train car and it flipped over, and then when we came back, it was upright. You know, I mean, it wasn't like on its side or in the yard off the track or anything like that.
And the girl, her friend, when she went looking for her, she stepped in a giant hole. That looked like it could have been a giant's footprint.
Right.
And I was like, at that point, I was like, wait a minute. These things might be real.
Yeah.
What's going on? There's a little trickery there, but that could
I was about to rewind it, Corey, with that part you just alluded to. I was like, wait a minute.
I was like, did I see what I think I saw? Did she connect the dots, or was it just my mind thinking that she really saw that hole? And but that could have been a hole from anything. But it was good editing it as far as that part where it tried to connect the two worlds in reality.
Dude, I'm all about fooling us, making us feel like we in a deception of like
it's
what's real. Man, get my mind moving like that. I don't know about y'all. I like movies who do that, but I mean, again, no, don't do it too much. Like, just do it enough to captivate us. But I'm not saying make the whole movie like that. But when you intertwine those puzzle pieces with certain concepts, like it can get pretty cool. But I know, again, the graphic novel, they could have went straight from that. They could have changed it up. I would have to compare the two to know the answer, but
yeah.